Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Astottara Sadasya Srimad Abhay Charanara Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Mayapur Dham ki Jai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Jai Gaura Premanande. Om Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurum Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitan Yena Bhutale Swayan Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakambitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu vyaevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna. So we're reading from first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 6, entitled Conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva. We're reading from text 6 to text 10. So I'll read 6 to 9 and we'll verse 10 is on the board. Text 6. Ekatmaya me janani yoshim mudha chakinkari mayatmaye nanyagatao chakre snehanubandhanam. I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman, but a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with the tie of affection. Text 7. Sasvatantra nakalpasit yugakshemam mamekchati ishasyahi vashe loko yoshadaru mayiyata. She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything for me. The world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master. 8. Aham cha tat pramakule ushivanstat upekshaya dikte shakala vyutpanno balaka panchahayana. When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmana school. I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different lands. 9. Ekada nirgatam gehat duhantim nishigampati sarpoda shatpadab sprishta kripanam kalachodita. Once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent. influenced by supreme time. Purport. That is the way of dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. The poor boy was being looked after only by his affectionate mother, and yet the mother was taken from the world by the supreme will in order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord. Text 10. Now you can repeat. Tadatam aham ishasyam. Tadatat aham ishasyam. Bhaktanam sham abhipsatam. Bhaktanam sham abhipsatam. Anugraham manyamana. Anugraham manyamana. Pratishtam disham uttaram. Pratishtam disham uttaram. Tadaham ishasyam. Bhaktanam sham abhipsatam. Anugraham manyamana. Pratishtam disham uttaram. Bolo. Tadam mamisasyam. Bhaktanam sang abhipsatam. Anugraham manyamanam. Pratishtam disham uttaram. Tadatat aham ishasyam. Bhaktanam sham abhipsatam. Anugraham manyamanam. Pratishtam disham uttaram. Tadattadaham ishasyam. Bhaktanam samabhipsatam. Anugraham manyamanam. Pratishtatam diksham uttaram. Ladies? Tadasam uttaram. Tadam ishasyam. Bhaktanam samabhipsatam. Anugraham manyamana. Pratishtam disham uttaram. Tada, at that time, that, aham, I, ishasya, of the Lord, bhaktanam, of the devotees, sam, mercy, abhipsataha, desiring, anugraham, special benediction, manyamanaha, thinking in that way, pratishtam, departed, disham uttaram, in the northern direction. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for His devotees. And so thinking, I started for the north. Purport. Confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. What is considered to be an odd or difficult moment in the mundane sense is accepted as special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished, and spiritual health is obtained step by step. Mundane people misunderstand it. Hare Krishna. So Narada Muni's, in his previous life, response to this tragedy is outstanding. He's just a 5-year-old boy, and he's fully dependent on his mother. He has no one else, and Krishna took her away. So, and why he did this? He did this to bestow mercy upon him, so that actually he could become more dependent on him. And this is what Krishna is doing with everybody, with the devotees particularly. But he wants us to, no, it's not doing it with everybody, it's actually doing it with the devotees. He's reciprocating with our desire to go back home, back to Godhead. So it is outstanding because Narada Muni was just a 5-year-old boy. Sometimes we like to hear about success stories. And here in the Bhagavatam, right at the beginning, we're hearing of an amazing success story. He didn't even have a great parentage. He was the son of a maidservant. He didn't know who his father was. He didn't know his father. And just at the age of 5 years, Krishna takes his mother away. And what is his response? Like he is saying here, that I took this as a special mercy of the Lord. And previously, the verses that we just read now, he was saying that, he was bound to her by the tie of affection. So he had that transcendental vision to see how that was an impediment for his, spiritual development, and how she couldn't really do anything for him. And therefore, when this tragedy took place, he didn't blame Krishna, or he didn't become overly disturbed, but actually he surrendered to the situation, and he saw how that situation was favorable for his execution of Krishna consciousness. And this is easier said than done, to come to this platform that we actually see everything as the mercy of the Lord. This is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Our Krishna consciousness, you can say, is measured to the degree that we are able to see how Krishna is intervening in our lives at every step. And that's why Prabhupada in the purport, he is saying that confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a beneficiary direction of the Lord, a benedictory direction of the Lord. So the devotee, when Albert Einstein, he put this question forward. He said, "Is the universe favorable or is it unfavorable?" It's many years back, So and this, he was saying that this is the most important question that a human being can ask, And some of Prabhupada's God brothers actually spoke about this, and about it. How is it? So is the universe favorable or is it unfavorable? For the devotee, the universe is favorable or unfavorable? Sure? It is favorable. But why it is favorable? Because it's not that the devotee, like sometimes we find these, materialist people now, it's a common thing that they say that, well, whatever is happening is good, it's all for, for my development or whatever. But actually, it is good when we bring Krishna into the picture. Then it is good. And this is the consciousness of a devotee. That the devotee, whatever happens into our lives, either good or bad, doesn't matter. In this case, the Bhagavatam is giving us very extreme examples, very extreme. Like Narada, a young boy, 5-year-old, you picture it. His mother is taken away. We already heard Parikshit Maharaj is being cursed. How did Parikshit Maharaj respond to this? Did he blame Krishna? Or did he become upset? Or overly disturbed? So this is the lesson that we are learning from this. And it's a very important lesson for all of us, because we are all on the same, we are living in the material world, and there are going to be plenty of opportunities for being disturbed, plenty of obstacles, plenty of tragedies. Maybe not tragedies, hopefully, but difficulties will come our way. So how do we respond to this? How do we respond? And so how the confidential devotees respond. Confidential devotees means, like Prabhupada explains, what is the most confidential type of knowledge given in the scriptures. The most confidential type of knowledge is that Krishna wants us to go back home, back to Godhead. That's the most confidential type of knowledge. He is more eager than we are for us to go back home, back to Godhead. And he, just for the peace of mind, because when we bring these topics, sometimes the heart goes like, what's going to happen now? Krishna is going to, Yasyahang anugrina mi. That, when I want to bestow mercy upon someone, Krishna says in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, he says that if I really want to give mercy to someone, I take everything away. In this way, his friends reject him, his family rejects him, he becomes destitute. If I want to bestow mercy upon him. So sometimes when we hear these things, it's like, oh my God, maybe I should worship someone else, This is too difficult. It's going to be so painful. But we should understand that, and this is what is being mentioned here before. It says that, I really like this sentence, by the way. It says that is the way of dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. That is the way of dragging. Dragging, it means like even you are holding into something. You drag. Even I want to go back home, back to Godhead, but let me enjoy a little bit. I'm not ready to give it all up. And Krishna says, no, give it up. This is poison. This is causing you suffering, and it's dragging us. And even though, we may hold on to material desires or whatever, he still is dragging us. And how he's dragging us, he's saying that, by putting us in making us completely dependent on him. That's ultimately the principle here. So it's not necessarily that we're going to have to become destitute, materially destitute, but Krishna or Prabhupada is also giving a warning in the purport, and he's saying that, mundane prosperity, it gives, he compares this to like a kind of material fever. Prabhupada explains about this also in the Upanishad. And what is the material fever? The material fever is that we think ourselves to be the controllers and the enjoyers. I am the doer, And so when material prosperity, when we are successful materially, that's the tendency. So therefore, in order to bring and this is what maintains material existence. So in order to bring that fever down, Krishna sometimes may give some, kind of punishment, which is nothing else but our karma, really. He's giving us our karma, so that we give up that false sense of, so to bring the fever down, basically, to use the same analogy. And so therefore, we may need, sometimes he may give like a gentle push, sometimes he may give a more rough. It depends on on the surrender of the devotee, and it depends on what is favorable for that person. Yeyatamam prapadyante tanstataiva bhajameham. That as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path. Everybody. So we should understand that everything is coming from Krishna. Everything. Nothing is happening without the sanction of the Lord. The illusion is to think that things are taking place by chance. And when we take Krishna out of the picture, then what happens is that we tend to blame others, or we tend to blame the situation, or we tend to, we enter into this kind of blame game. We don't want to take responsibility. The essence of is many important points. This is a very, a nice section in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And where we're actually learning what was Narada Muni's realization after he had the association of the Bhaktivedantas. And what is that realization? That when misery came, or when the difficulty came, he was able to see that as Krishna's mercy. He saw, like we read in just a couple of verses before, it says, the world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master. That, having that realization and that understanding, then when something happens to us, either good or bad, we can remain peaceful. Without that understanding, we cannot be peaceful. And we will be, blaming someone for our situation and not taking responsibility. Not taking responsibility. So, when misery comes our way, we should accept that this is some karmic debt I have. And this is what is explained so nicely by Lord Brahma. He says, Tate nukampam susamikshemano bungyana evatma kritam vipakam ridvak vapurvir vidadan namaste jiveta yumukti pade sadayabhak. And he says that one who earnestly waits for you to bestow his mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past sinful activities with his heart, body, and words, then he becomes the right inheritor for the kingdom of God. So, this is the key point, that we are going to, whatever is happening to us in our previous life, in this life, because of whatever we have done in the past, rather than protest or lament or become overly depressed, what we have to do is we have to take shelter of Krishna. Dridvag vapurvir vidadan namaste. With heart, with our actions, with our words, we keep glorifying the Lord, we keep hearing about Krishna. And we offer obeisances in our heart. It means that we don't hold any grudges. You cannot hold grudges. You have to let go. And when we are able to do this, when we are not getting what we want in material existence, someone is making our life difficult, or something happens to us, a devotee, he is not disturbed. Yasman not viyate loko, loka not viyate chaya, harsha marsha vayot megar, mukti yasa chame priya. He says, one who is not disturbed by anyone, and one who does not disturb anybody. That devotee, he becomes very dear to me. So this is the test of our Krishna consciousness. To what degree we have actually accepted that Krishna is the supreme controller, that nothing takes place without Krishna's sanction, and that whatever is happening in my life is due to me. I am responsible for it. It's not this person, it's not that person, it's not the temple president or the president of the country or the king of the government, or it is, and therefore the person can become. I can remain sober, because it's a lot easier to remain peaceful when we know that everything is happening under Krishna's sanction, isn't it? When we are it's a lot easier to remain peaceful when we see Krishna's hands, when we actually see Krishna's intervention. You see, the difference between a materialist and a devotee, the materialist, he thinks that everything is taking place by chance. So therefore he is in constant anxiety, because anything can take place any moment. But the devotee, he sees how nothing takes place without Krishna's intervention. So therefore, he sees in everything how his environment, we're talking about, is the environment friendly or not. For the devotee, he sees how my circumstances tell me what to do in terms of devotional service. How am I supposed to respond to this situation? And guess what? How are we supposed to respond to the situation? Surrender. Surrender. And for those who surrender, then the material energy backs off. The same material energy that is pushing us, that is squeezing us, that is making us suffer so much, when we do actually take shelter of Krishna through surrender, with our hearts taking responsibility. You're so kind, my Lord, that actually you're giving me just a tiny little token reaction for what I've done. Even though it is hard for me to swallow this pill right now and to take this purification, I pray to you, please, you kindly give me the strength to go through it. And meanwhile, you continue with your devotional service. It's not that we have to do anything extraneous. All it is just continue with the practice. You don't have to do some, like atonement, or some, something extra apart from just taking shelter of Krishna. If we want to do something that is going to help us to take more shelter of Krishna, okay. But the main point is that we should remain, we should take more and more shelter. And there is the Bhagavad Sarva Dharmam Parityagya, Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraya, Aham Tan Sarva Papavyo, Moksha Yisyami Masuchada. If you surrender to me, I will take everything away. I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. But when the difficulty comes, it's so hard. It's always a little challenging when we speak about these things on the Vyasasam, because I know that Krishna will test me for speaking these things. And it's easier to speak it, but when you actually have to implement it in your life and live according to these principles, then there is a friction in the heart, there is a tension in the heart. But the interesting thing is that that tension in the heart is actually not caused by the situation. It's not caused by my circumstances. It is caused by my resistance to actually surrender to Krishna and to take full shelter. The moment that we do surrender to Krishna and we accept it, that actually, yes, my Lord, I deserve this. And it's not that we have to become all like depressed and negative and, it's nothing like that. It's just accepting that I'm due this and I'm taking it. I accept and I continue with my service. So this pastime comes in the context of the history of how the Srimad Bhagavatam came along. The sages asked Sutta Goswami, they were hearing about the Bhagavatam, and they asked where, about Vyasadeva, and they asked where did Vyasadeva got the inspiration to compile the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we heard the whole history about how Vyasadeva was lamenting, and he was thinking about how to benefit the people in Kali Yuga, who he was foreseeing that it was an age of degradation. And he compiled all the Vedas and the Mahabharata and the Puranas and the Vedanta Sutra, and he still remained unsatisfied. And then Narada Muni came, and Narada Muni chastised him. And he instructed him to chastise him because he had not fully described the glories of the Lord. He had not presented the actual message of the Bhagavatam in an ambiguous way. He had given so many paths. So then Narada Muni explained actually the solution, how people can attain perfection, is through the Srimad Bhagavatam, through hearing about the transcendental glories, names, pastimes of the Lord, in the association of the devotees. Because by hearing about the Lord, one can become an associate of the Lord. One can become promoted to go back home, back to Godhead, and attain perfection. And as he was explaining this to Vyasadeva, and explained and instructed him to compile the Srimad Bhagavatam, then he gave his own life as an example of how can someone attain perfection. So in my previous life was, and this is what we're hearing now, that because Vyasadeva is inquired from him, how did you attain this present birth? He's seeing him as Narada Muni, the transcendental sadhu traveling all over the universe. How did you did attain this transcendental stage? Because Narada Muni had told him about the Bhaktivedantas, how the Bhaktivedantas had come and during the rainy season, and he had the opportunity to serve them. Not only he had the opportunity to serve them, but he also heard from them the Bhagavatam. Not only that, he took the remnants once, just once. And Prabhupada explains that this bhakti is infectious, like an infectious disease. Just by hearing the Bhagavatam in the association of the Bhaktivedantas, there was a quick change in his heart. And what were the qualities that he had? He was disciplined. You remember, he didn't waste time playing sports. He was, not talkative. He invoked the mercy of the Bhaktivedantas. And because he invoked the mercy of the Bhaktivedantas, that brought a change of his heart. And this is what the Bhagavatam is meant to do. He's meant to bring a change of heart. So what happens when there is a change of heart, when we become serious about spiritual life? It was exactly what happened to Narada Muni. Then Krishna will make arrangements. Krishna will make arrangements. Krishna will remove the obstacles. But it is proportionate to the degree that we want to make progress in Krishna consciousness. And that's what I was saying, that Krishna is reciprocating with everyone. You want to be a materialist? You want to forget me? Okay, here is the whole material world. Plenty of opportunity to fulfill your material desires, to forget about me. You can live here and not even knowing that I exist. That's what you want? Okay. So many people are there like that. God doesn't exist. But Krishna himself is allowing that to take place. But those who are serious about Krishna consciousness, those who are serious, then Krishna reveals himself. And he says that he chooses that particular person. But whom he chooses is depending on the depth of our commitment. So how serious I am about going back home, back to Godhead? That's, that we should ask ourselves this question. Do I really want to go back home, back to Godhead? What do I really want? What is in the core of my heart? What do I really want? Because Krishna will fulfill those desires. Now the point is that because we don't have the pure desire, then he's giving us the Bhagavatam. So that by hearing the Bhagavatam, in the association of the devotees, we're going to get purification. We're going to develop the proper desire. And this is what happened to Narada Muni. By that association of the devotees, by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, he became transformed. And look at him. Everything happened so quickly. He heard the Bhaktivedantas left, and within no time, the only thing that was holding him back to the material world was his mother. Took her away. Because it was fair. And then Narada Muni, when that happened, as I said, he didn't blame Krishna. He didn't become upset. Look, I had nothing. The only person I had, the only support I have, and you took her away. He didn't become bitter. He immediately saw this as a benediction. What kind of consciousness he developed in such a short time? We are grown-up adults, right? Do we have that consciousness? When problem comes, we immediately take it as Krishna's mercy, and we become resolved to actually move ahead. So therefore we are hearing about all these pastimes, and the whole thing is a glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because this is the result of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. That we become fixed in consciousness, and we become very determined about going back home, back to Godhead. Because as we are describing, Brahma is describing that for one who acts according to this principle of accepting everything that comes into a life, not just the bad, the good and the bad, you accept that as Krishna's mercy. You see Krishna's hands within that. What happens is, you become the right heir for God, for the kingdom of God. That's the price. That's the price. If we want to go back home, back to Godhead, I accept my lot with a grateful heart, and I continue serving Krishna with full determination, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of the devotees. Just by staying alive in Krishna consciousness, as I say, you don't have to make any adjustments, just remaining alive. How good is that? And we become Sadayavak. We inherit the kingdom of God. Where all our desires will be fulfilled. Anything that you can possibly imagine. Sometimes we take some Mahaprasadam here from Radha Madhava, and I get a glimpse about what prasadam must be like in the spiritual world. Just even eating something in the spiritual world. And we get sometimes a glimpse here. The senses become completely enlivened. We cannot even imagine what is the spiritual world. And all these desires, everything is just like a byproduct. Because really, what we get by going back home, back to Godhead, we get to experience the full rasa, the full prema of having an intimate relationship with Krishna. We purchase Krishna eternally. It's a small price to pay. So when we meditate on we have that meditation, that whatever is coming into my life, this is Krishna's special medicine for me to go back home, back to Godhead. So I always remember one time I was going through some purification, which is often anyway, but it was particularly tough. And I shared it with a devotee, and she said to me, say, embrace it, you know. So when purification comes, when difficulty comes, we should embrace it, you know, and see how the Lord is moving me, is pushing me in a particular direction. And we have so many examples of this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. How the devotees, they responded, like Parikshit Maharaj. What did he do? He went to this, he sat down in the Ganges and heard Bhagavatam for 7 days, uninterruptedly, just because he had become upset, because he, you know, was thirsty and Shringi didn't, his father didn't, you know, offer him water. You know, he lost his temper, but, you know, immediately he became composed again, and then he sat down to hear the Bhagavatam. We heard about Vidura. Same beautiful example in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 3rd canto, when Duryodhana, he was insulting him like he was his nephew, and he was telling Dhritarashtra, you know, this kept son of a mistress, throw him out of the palace, leaving only with his breath, you know, beat him, you know. And Vidura was innocent. He had not done anything. He was an advisor, very respected in the palace. Did he just chatted to, you know, Duryodhana, who you think you are, just tiny little young man? Who are you to criticize me like this? You are wrong. He didn't say a word. He left the palace, put his bow and arrow by the door, and he left. Not to be seen again. I mean, he came much later. Didn't see Krishna again. But he saw that an opportunity to abandon all the politics and all the intrigues of the palace, how this was favorable for my Krishna consciousness. So the same principle is being implemented. And the point is that the basic point is that we have to surrender to the situation. Sometimes surrender may mean, you know, to renounce. Sometimes may not be to renounce, like Priyavrata. He had to take up the kingdom, the empire. But the point is that whatever happens into our life, we try to see how Krishna is actually directing our lives. What Krishna wants me to, how Krishna wants me to respond to this situation. It's not a self-centered, you know, response. Why is this happening to me? Why I'm not getting my desires? Why it's acting like that? No. I'm seeing a broader picture, and the broader picture seen by the confidential devotees is that Krishna wants me to go back home, back to Godhead. And if I have the right desire, He will help me to do that. He is helping me to do this, having that faith and that conviction. And that was the realization that Narada Muni had just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for a few months. So therefore, throughout this section, we're being inspired to take shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, to take shelter of the devotees, because that is actually what is going to bring a permanent solution to the problems of life. We may try to adjust this, health, financial situation, emotional, whatever, you know. And definitely you have to attend to all those things in order to be able to stay sane. But we should not forget or neglect the main thing. What is the main thing? Is to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of the devotees, to serve the devotees daily. Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. And for one who is absorbed in hearing and chanting about the Lord, naturally he becomes detached and disentangled from the, fluctuations of the material energy. He's not disturbed. How wonderful will that be, isn't it? That we are able to remain undisturbed in front of the provocations that come our way in material existence. How do we attain this? By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. What is that verse? It says that who is there desiring deliverance from the vices of the urge of Kali, who is not willing to hear about the glories of the Lord? Hare Krishna. So there is a very nice purport in the first canto also that speaks about this. How the devotee becomes an expert in turning the material energy into spiritual energy. Because ultimately, Krishna is controlling everything. It's for us to choose to see how whatever is happening into our life, is it Krishna's mercy? If we want to see it connected with Krishna, it will be Krishna's mercy. If we don't want to see it connected with Krishna, it will be just material energy, and we become disturbed. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for next class.
Maybe before saying the question, just wait for a second so that online they can hear your question. Yeah.
Prabhuji, so Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita describes this world as the Kali Mashashvata, full of miseries. And so the materialists, those who are not devotees, they, when everything good is happening to them, they forget or they neglect the Lord. But when something bad happens to them, the very situation becomes favorable for them to approach Krishna. And Lord Krishna also describes in the Bhagavad Gita 4 kinds of people approach them, and one of them is distressed. So when everything is when things are going fine with the materialists, they do not approach Krishna. But when things are going bad, they approach Krishna. But it seems to be the other way around for devotees. When things are going fine, we all are happy, chant our rounds nicely, take the darshan nicely. But when something bad happens to us, when something not favorable happen to us, we start isolating ourselves, not coming in much contact with the devotees, neglecting the association, get depressed. So you mentioned in the beginning that this world is favorable for devotees, but it seems to be the other way around. How to understand this situation?
Thank you. I mean, there's a few things in what you said. So I'll just go from the beginning of the question, because you said that the materialists, when they suffer, they tend to God. Okay, but that's not really the case. The materialists, when they suffer, they tend to alcohol, they tend to drugs, they tend to sex, they tend to all kinds of things. So suffering by itself is not the cause of anyone going to God, tending to God. Right? We need the mercy of the devotees. We need some piety. Someone who is pious, who has done some, Agyata Sukriti, they will tend to God. But material suffering, you see in the material world, who is tending to God? People are tending to all kinds of things, unfortunately. Therefore, we have to come and create that good fortune for people by carrying the message of Prabhupada. So that's one thing I wanted to clarify. Now, the other thing is just saying that for the devotees, it seems to be the opposite, that when there is misery, so therefore, we are hearing this. Therefore, we are hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, so that we can actually see things in the proper perspective. Because there is going to be challenges. There are going to be tests. It's unavoidable. But how do the confidential devotees see that? Tell me. I spent like about 45 minutes talking about it. How the confidential devotees see that when something, unfortunate happens to you. How do you see it? Tell me.
Mercy of Krishna.
Mercy of Krishna, yeah?
Acts the favorite situation for you to surrender to Krishna.
Yeah. Try to see how Krishna is intervening in my life. Try to see how I am becoming more dependent on the Lord. How can I surrender? Ultimately, we have to surrender. That's the point. Becoming dependent on the Lord. So therefore, and then we have, so many examples. Prabhupada himself in his own life, if you study Prabhupada's life, that's the essence of his life. He showed us how to surrender to Krishna and how to remain happy and be so successful by surrendering at every stage. If you look at Prabhupada's life, at every stage he was surrendering. And like those who were close to Prabhupada, they describe how Prabhupada, did you see ever Prabhupada like running around or stressed, Prabhupada is always like, in every picture and everything, every time you see him, he's like, so gracious, regal, and doing so many things, dealing with so many challenges. We can't even imagine. He's held disciples, rebellious disciples, a whole worldwide society, legal cases like in Mumbai, so many things that he had to deal with. He was totally undisturbed. And what was he doing? Just talking about Krishna, talking about Krishna, talking about Krishna. Writing this Srimad Bhagavatam for us. That's Krishna consciousness. And that's what he's giving us. That's what we want to get. But for us, just a tiny little thing becomes like you say, I distance myself from the association of the devotees. It's not working anymore. This is not working. Is really Krishna God? Why is he doing this to me anyway if he's God? I'm surrendering to him. That will be like a neophyte. But we want to come to the platform of Madhyam. We want to come to a platform of being a confidential devotee. Because Prabhupada is making the point clear. Confidential devotees of the Lord, seeing every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. That's the confidential devotees. That's not the regular devotee. The regular devotee will blame, will complain. So we want to come up to that platform where we are able to see that. And we have to, if we want to come back to Godhead. That's the price. That's why Lord Brahma is giving us that. What is it? Tate nukampam susamikshama, tate nukampam, anukampam. I'm waiting for that mercy, and waiting for Krishna's mercy. Here, the word is anugraham. Anugraham is also that special benediction. That I quoted from the Bhagavatam, the other verse, Yasyahang anugrina mi. He said, when I want to give a special blessing, a special mercy to the devotee, I take everything away. We're waiting for that benediction by the Lord. Clear? And I will also, another point about the point that you made is that is not the case. Sometimes when difficulty comes our way, we become more serious about spiritual life. Isn't it? When things are difficult, we have like a difficult situation going on in our lives, we sometimes become very serious about japa. We become very serious about everything we do because we're suffering. And we really want to stop that suffering. And then we go to Krishna, you please help me, I'm miserable. Haha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kipavalokana Koro Ami Boroduki. He's saying, Lord Nityananda, you are so happy, you are so blissful. Look at me, I'm so miserable. Please help me. And that's it. There's no more that we have to say. Krishna knows. I'm miserable. You please make me happy. Really happy. Not just fulfill my desires, but make me help me become Krishna conscious. But over time, and the Prabhu who asked me to do the class, he said, finish at 9. Okay, one more.
In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we know that there was two close associates of Mahaprabhu, Misha and Chandrasekhar, and in one purport.
Oh yeah, the mic, sorry.
And in one purport, Srila Prabhupada said that they are pure devotees.
Yeah.
And the next one, he said they are Kanishta.
Yeah.
So how to understand and what is, because we know Kanishta.
It's not connected to the class, this question. Eh? It's just.
You mentioned we should not be Kanishta.
Oh, okay, for that. Okay, yeah. The point being there in this connection, you can be a pure devotee, but you can be Kanishta Adhikari. Yeah. But the thing is that in the context is that they didn't have they were not philosophically so learned to defeat, to debate in argument. So, but they themselves, and being and I'm just acting as a principle, the point of being Kanishta Adhikari, you are still practicing pure devotional service, but you don't have a strong faith, and you don't have a strong knowledge of the scriptures. But even though you may have material desires, you're not acting upon those desires. Your goal is still pure devotional service, and you're practicing pure devotional service. Okay? And I'm anxious, yeah. Okay, chalo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaura